In a fiery defense of his reputation Friday night, embattled Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz claims he is the victim of an orchestrated witch hunt.
They lie about me because I tell the truth about them, and I'm not going to stop. So when you see the leaks and the lies and the falsehoods and the smears, when you see the anonymous sources and insiders forecasting my demise, know this: they aren't really coming for me. They're coming for you. I'm just in the way.
Gaetz is currently under federal investigation over allegations that include sex trafficking and prostitution. Joining me right now to discuss, Shan Wu, a defense attorney and a former federal prosecutor, and Michael Zeldin, a former federal prosecutor and former Justice Department official. Good to see both of you.
Morning, friend.
All right, Shan, you first. When you have a federal investigation, reports of evidence including ApplePay, Venmo, and allegations of prostitution, I mean, how much trouble potentially is Congressman Gaetz in?
He's in a lot of trouble. That kind of evidence is not the sort of evidence you can just talk away through posturing. There's going to be actual documents, financial records indicating where he went, corroborating the probable testimony of these victims of the potential sex trafficking allegations. So this is going to be very difficult evidence to refute. No amount of hot air is going to just do it by itself.
Michael, Congressman Gaetz, I mean, he's very defiant. He's going in front of cameras. He's on stage at events there. Do you see this potentially backfiring on him?
Well, if he says anything that is incriminating or can be thought to be incriminating if he ever gets to a trial, then sure. Mostly, as I was a defense attorney, I would say to my clients, please be quiet. But he's taking his cue out of the Donald Trump playbook, and he's, as you saw in the clip, he's saying, they're coming for you. This is not about me. This is about us, the movement. And that's
we've heard
fine
that refrain
for fundraising.
Before.
Yeah. He sent a million fundraising letters off the back of this. So, it's fine as a media strategy, but it won't help him as a trial defense strategy were he charged with any of the charges that are in the news today.
Shan, Congressman Gaetz, he's been speaking out since the day the New York Times, broke the story about the investigation. Listen to what he had to say.
I can say that actually you and I went to dinner about 2 years ago. Your wife was there, and I brought a friend of mine. You'll remember her. And she was actually threatened by the FBI, told that if she wouldn't cop to the fact that somehow I was involved in some pay-for-play scheme, that she could face trouble. And so I do believe that there are people at the Department of Justice who are trying to smear me, providing for flights and hotel rooms for people that you're dating who are of legal age is not a crime. And I'm just troubled that the lack of any sort of legitimate investigation into me would then would then convert into this extortion attempt.
I don't remember the woman you're speaking of or the context at all, honestly.
All right, so Shan, just listening to all that Gaetz, spit out, aside from, Tucker Carlson there, Gaetz believes this is advantageous for him to state it in that manner. Is it?
No, it's terribly disadvantageous. To Michael's point, he's actually incriminating himself. He's basically admitting that there are women that he may have given gifts to, that he paid. So it's a terrible statement to make. And he either has really bad legal counsel or he's refusing to listen to it, because that's exactly the kind of thing you don't want your client out there talking about.
Yeah, and then Michael, an attorney for Joel Greenberg, a central figure in this ongoing investigation into Congressman Gaetz, says his client will likely strike a deal with federal prosecutors. That seems pretty potentially devastating for Gaetz, is it not?
If the deal involves cooperation. Many defendants plead guilty to a plea bargain that doesn't involve cooperation. If Greenberg has something incriminating to say about Gaetz, that is his greatest leverage to get himself out from under what is a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence for the sex trafficking activity. And so if he can...
deal unless there was that, right? I mean, they're not going to want to cut a deal unless there is something incriminating.
Well, not always, Fred. If you are facing a 33-count indictment and that trial could take weeks, and the defendant is going to plead guilty to some lesser amount that gets you what you want as a prosecutor. Those plea deals take place all the time. In this case, Joel Greenberg's greatest lifeline is if he can testify up against Gaetz or anybody else that the investigation involves. Remember, this investigation is supposedly a broader investigation than just Matt Gaetz and Joel Greenberg. So we have to see what Greenberg knows, what he can say, and to Shan's point, how it can be documented, because you don't want to go to trial on the word of Joel Greenberg alone.
Mm-hmm. Shan, how do you see it?
I agree, although I really think, judging from the lawyer's remarks for Greenberg, he is going to cooperate. And I think one important context, Fred, is the Epstein case, because the Justice Department has messed this up once before, letting a sex trafficker go with just a slap on the wrist. They're not going to let that happen again. This is a different environment than it was before. The testimony of any of these complainants, particularly the underage minor, is going to be devastating. This is a new time. We care about victims, and I think that's going to be the biggest problem for Gaetz.
Oh my gosh, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm telling you, at the beginning of reading things on this story, it sure made me think about the Epstein case in South Florida and how that evolved. We'll leave it there. All right, thank you so much. We'll talk again soon. Michael, Shan, thank you so much. We're going to talk about the second week of this damaging testimony